In this video, we're looking at the best 3D modeling laptops. So whether you're on a budget or money is not an option and you're just looking for the best performing laptop, you're in the right place. I have a full lineup of laptops. Some of these I've had full hands-on reviews for. I have benchmark tests, thermal tests in the most popular 3D modeling programs. So let's dive into it.
Let's get rocking.
First and foremost, these laptops are going to be listed in ascending order from the most budget-friendly, according to 3D modeling specs and requirements, all the way up to the most expensive ones on this list. Now, I have hands-on experience with 80% of these laptops. And make sure you stay till the end because we're going to have benchmark test results, thermal temps, and we're going to have a discussion regarding the specs of each of these laptops. Now remember, there are affiliate links in the description below of any of these laptops. As we're going through this video, you can check the pricing and availability. Now I do get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you, and that's what keeps this channel alive and the helpful content coming your way. Now remember that these are in fact my top picks. So what are you considering? Comment below, let me know, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those questions for you. Now, one more thing I want to say before kicking off this video is you'll see that each of these laptops have a dedicated GPU. That's very important. When it comes to 3D modeling, a dedicated GPU is the way you want to go. Also, you'll see at the more budget-friendly models that they come with 8 gigs of RAM. I would personally upgrade that to 16 at a minimum. 3D modeling can take a lot of RAM, and so you want to make sure that you upgrade that to 16 or 32. So you'll see that the laptops I recommend have 8 in the beginning budget standpoint, but personally, I would bump that up. So let's get into it. First and foremost on the list is the IdeaPad by Lenovo. This is the Gaming 3, and it comes with the Intel i5-10300H with 4 cores and 8 threads. It has a 2.5 base clock and a 4.5 turbo clock. It has the GTX 1650 GPU. Now, this does have lower color accuracy, but for your 3D modeling projects, you may or may not need high color accuracy, so I'll leave that up to you. Next up is the MSI GF75. This is a 17-inch laptop coming with the i5-10300H. This has 4 cores and 8 threads, has a 2.5 base clock and a 4.5 turbo, and again, has the 1650 by NVIDIA. Now, this also comes with a better color gamut range. You see you have an 89% sRGB and a 58% Adobe RGB. Now, one thing I want to mention about this laptop is there's also, a MSI GF65, but don't trust that that's going to have the same color accuracy as the MSI GF75. So a lot of times laptop manufacturers will put different screens on different models. So do your due diligence. Don't say, oh, wow, I see the GF75 has this great color accuracy, so the GF65 must have the same. That's not always true. Make sure you do your due diligence. And if you want that color accuracy, you're checking those specs. All right, next up on the list is the Acer Nitro 5. This is a great little laptop. I have done a full review of this laptop, and I'll link it up in the YouTube cards above when it is available. And it comes in a variety of spec outs. So you can get it with the Ryzen 5 4600H or the Intel i5-10300H. So for the Ryzen, we have 6 cores and 12 threads. For the Intel, we have 4 cores and 8 threads. And they both have the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650. 16 gigs of RAM, but as you see, that color accuracy is slightly disappointing. And forgive me for the typo, this is actually 15.6 inches for the screen size. Now, a lot of people ask, should I buy Ryzen or should I buy Intel? Well, if you are somebody who's going to be doing multitasking, I would push you towards Ryzen. You got the 6 cores and 12 threads, so you'll have much better abilities when it comes to running, say Photoshop, a 3D modeling program, maybe listening to music and checking your email. The Ryzen processor will run that better because it has more cores and more threads. Next up on the list is the Lenovo Legion model. So there's a variety of Lenovo Legions that you can consider when 3D modeling. So starting things off, we have the Legion 5 with the Ryzen 5 4600H. We have the Legion Y540 with the i7-9750H. And we have the Legion 5 with the Ryzen 7 4800H. So as you see, we have 6 cores and 12 threads for the 4600. We have 6 cores and 12 threads for the i7. And we have 8 cores and 16 threads for the 4800H. And all of these are around the same price point. Personally, if you're asking me what I would go for, I would lean towards the Legion 5 with the Ryzen 7 4800H, and then I would upgrade that RAM to 8 gigs of RAM, and that will be a pretty solid setup for 3D modeling. And you'll see later in the benchmarks how well that laptop has performed. Now, keep an eye on the color gamut range because it can come with a higher color gamut range than what is listed here. So you see the 120 hertz screen has a low color gamut range, but if you boost it up to a better quality screen, you can get better quality color gamut if that is something that interests you. Next up on the list is the HP Pavilion gaming laptop. This laptop does come with 2 setups as well. You can get the i5-10300H or the i7-10750. I would personally lean towards the i7-10750 as it's going to give you faster performance inside of the programs. However, as you see, there's a slight trade-off here. This Max-Q is a little slower and less powerful than the standard expression, the 1660 Ti. So just consider those differences. Do you want more processor power or do you want more GPU power? I will leave that up to you. Next up on the list is the HP Omen 15. This is a laptop that I've recently reviewed, and what a deal. I must say, it is an incredible steal for the price. It comes with the AMD Ryzen 7 4800H, has a 2.9 base clock and a 4.2 turbo clock with 8 cores and 16 threads. The NVIDIA GTX 1660 Ti. They do have an RTX version of this laptop, and that will give you even better performance inside of 3D modeling programs. So if you shell out, I think it's an extra $200 to $300, might be a little bit more. You'll have to go down in the description and click that link and find out the exact live price. But that'll give you better performance inside of the 3D modeling programs if you boost up to that RTX GPU. It has 16 gigs of RAM, and it has a color gamut range of 97% sRGB and 71% Adobe RGB in the 144 hertz screen variant. So great model. The HP Omen is awesome. And of course, I'll link up in the YouTube cards above my dedicated review of this laptop. Next is the MSI Creator 15M. This comes with the i7-10750H, with the RTX 2060 GPU by NVIDIA. This is a great setup. It's got a powerful GPU, it has a powerful processor, and it's under $1,700. We're inching up there with the price points, but really, I mean, you cannot beat this. It also has 32 gigs of RAM and has a 1 terabyte SSD, and the color gamut range is phenomenal. So as far as that mid-range price point, man, this is a really solid laptop. I personally enjoy MSI products. The MSI Prestige 15 is one of my favorites, thin and light, powerful laptops for 4K video editors on the go. This would make a great 3D modeling laptop in a medium price point. So great work, MSI, on this product. Next up is the Asus Zephyrus G14. If you're looking for a mid-range, as far as price point is concerned, Ryzen laptop, this is going to be a top pick in my opinion. You're going to have either the AMD Ryzen 7 4800H or the Ryzen 9 4900HS. Each of these has 8 cores and 16 threads. You're going to get more performance out of that GPU with the Ryzen 9 4900HS with the RTX 2060 Max-Q than you would with the GTX 1650. To me, that's an underpowered, if you're in this price point, that's kind of an underpowered GPU. You could go to more of the models we were talking about earlier in the video and get a better price point. But this is an all aluminum chassis, so it's good build quality, it's thin and light, it's a 14-inch display, so it's more of a compact on-the-go 3D modeling laptop. It has solid color accuracy with 91% sRGB and 60% Adobe RGB. Great laptop. Like I have a full dedicated review of this one as well. Personally, I felt this one got a little hot temperature-wise, but overall it performed very well in the test. And like I said, we're going to be looking at full benchmarks, thermal tests, all of that coming up at the mid of this video. All right, next up on the list is the Gigabyte Aero 15. This was one of my favorite laptops at CES 2020. It has a Pantone validated 100% sRGB, 100% Adobe RGB screen. And you can get this in more of a base model price point. As you see, $1,700 or you can get it in the Performance Edition, as I call it, for $3,500. These two are beasts. I mean, even the base model is solid with a i7-10750H, RTX 2060, 16 gigs of RAM. It is a solid setup. But then that Performance Edition comes with the i9-10980HK with 8 cores and 16 threads. You got a boost clock of 5.1 gigahertz. You get the RTX 2080 Super Max Q, 32 gigs of RAM, 4K touchscreen. I mean, it is just a beast of a computer. So it depends on how much you're looking to spend. But honestly, both models will give you great performance in 3D modeling. The Performance Edition will just obviously give you more performance in 3D modeling. It'll make the renders faster, it'll be smoother, you won't have as much lag. But honestly, testing this laptop out at CES 2020 this past year, I was just very impressed even by this base model, what it could handle. All right, next up on the list is the Acer Predator Helios 300. This is my best-selling laptop for 2019 and 2020. It is just such a well-priced machine for the performance. So for around $1,700, you can get 6 cores and 12 threads in the i7-10750H with the RTX 2060, 32 gigs of RAM, and for a gaming laptop, it has wonderful color accuracy with 97% sRGB and 77% Adobe RGB. Again, I do have a dedicated review of this laptop, and I'll link that up in the description, in the YouTube cards above, if you're interested in checking that one out as well. But of course, wait till the end of this video because we're going through some really good information here. All right, next up is the ROG Strix G17. Really great laptop as well. And that's the thing, is I've only chosen laptops that I've either had experience with, or according to the specs and the build quality, or even just seeing them at CES, I really believe in their abilities to do 3D modeling. So I know I keep saying, wow, this one's great, but that's why I picked them. All right, next is the specs on the G17. It's around $1,900, and you get the i7-10750H, turbo clock of 5.0 gigahertz, base clock of 2.6 with 6 cores and 12 threads. You get the RTX 2070 with 8 gigs of GDDR6 VRAM. So this thing is locked and loaded for 3D modeling. You can see the 32 gig model I have linked up in the description below, but personally I reviewed this 64 gigabyte model, which was a beast. And it has 2 terabytes of SSD and a 17.3-inch screen with 98% sRGB and 75% Adobe RGB. This has been one of the best laptops as far as performance is concerned that I've had on my channel across the board for 3D modeling. So you'll see that as we're getting into the test here in just a little bit, and you'll see that it really does perform well, and especially for this price point. It's a great price for the specs that it comes with. All right, next up on the list is the Dell XPS 15 9500. This laptop falls in the upper level of price points just because of the build quality. It does have good specs, but it doesn't have the greatest specs. But if you're somebody who wants a well-built laptop that's on the go, that's aluminum with carbon fiber, then the Dell XPS is a great choice. Comes in at around $1,749. It has the i7-10750H. It has a 1650 Ti GPU, 16 gigs of RAM, and it has the 4K display with 100% sRGB and 100% Adobe RGB. So this laptop is great as an overall package, but is not going to be the best performing as far as 3D modeling concerns in this price range. So just keep that in mind. I personally have this laptop. I've used it for many years, an older model, and I have really enjoyed and got great use out of my Dell XPS 15. The Asus ZenBook Pro Duo. This is a really niche laptop with dual screens built in. This is great for 3D modeling because you can have, your tools or, your different configurations or settings down here, and then you can be doing your designing up here. And so it just makes for a really creative, expansive workspace, and it is also packs a big punch. So it has the i7-9750H or the i9-9980HK. Please forgive me, I forget the exact SKU on that one, but you can get it in 2 variations. This is the more budget-friendly variation. I know it's not budget-friendly according to like actual budgets, but budget according to this laptop. And then it comes with the RTX 2060, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of solid-state hard drive, 4K display, and has an 81% sRGB and 62% Adobe RGB. So really, this one comes on the list because of its niche function, having dual screens. But if you wanted to really get a ton of power out of this one, the i7 is great, but the i9 would be a nice step up as well. All right, next up on the list is the Asus ProArt StudioBook Pro 17. This is one of those laptops that's literally been designed for 3D modeling. So when I was at CES this past year, they had a bunch of 3D modeling programs set up on it so you could test it out and see how it worked. And it worked very well there, but I couldn't do any official benchmarks. But I recently was able to get it in the studio and do some official benchmark tests, and it blew basically every laptop out of the water. And the reason being is it has this NVIDIA Quadro RTX 3000. So for the programs that really take an emphasis on studio drivers rather than the GeForce drivers, now the difference between that is gaming versus creative tasks and workstation oriented tasks. This laptop really killed it with these specs. So we have the i7-9750H. We have the RTX 3000. It has 64 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of SSD, 17.3-inch Full HD display, and 100% sRGB, 89% Adobe RGB, and 100% DCI P3. So great creator laptop. The price point for these specs is not outrageous. I mean, it's definitely on the upper end of budgets, but it is a solid build. Next up is the Acer Concept D7 Pro. Great laptop from Acer, really coming out with a laptop that is built for creators. They were really pushing this. I've enjoyed their products. I've been able to review a handful of them, and I'm impressed with what they're doing. They have aluminum chassis, and it just is nice to see a company striving to produce gear specifically for creators. And that really comes out in the Pantone validated display of 100% sRGB, 100% Adobe RGB, and 100% DCI P3. Pantone validated 4K Ultra HD IPS display, 1 terabyte of SSD, 32 gigs of RAM. Here's that GPU I was talking about, the NVIDIA Quadro RTX 3000, and then they have the i7-9750H with 6 cores and 12 threads. A little pricey, but it's packed with a lot of features which will make the 3D modeling experience sharper and more color accurate. All right, the Apple MacBook Pro 16. Of course, we cannot leave this giant out of the mix, as well as my Mac OS fans. And this is the upgraded version. I don't think that I would personally go with the base model if I was going to be doing 3D modeling. I would go ahead and fork out the extra $1,000 and get the i9 9880H with 8 cores and 16 threads with a base clock of 2.3 and a turbo clock of 4.8. I would upgrade the GPU to the Radeon Pro 5500M with 8 gigs of VRAM. I would get the 32 gigs, 1 terabyte, 16-inch display. Of course, they all come standard. And then if it has the 100% sRGB and 100% Adobe RGB. Just the reason being is you need that power. You need that extra kick in 3D modeling with the GPU and more RAM, as well as that higher processor, and you will have no issues inside of your programs. So personally, if you want Mac, I would spend the extra $1,000 and get the upgraded version. If you're not wanting to spend that extra $1,000, then if you can handle not going with Mac, I would lean away from Mac and consider some of the other models here in this lineup. The Razer Blade 15. This is a laptop that you can sneak in at the same price as the MacBook Pro. Never mind. The base model is more affordable, but the advanced and studio editions are quite pricey. But these do have higher performing processors than the current MacBook Pro. Both of these models, have the i7-10875H, and it has 8 cores and 16 threads. So you're going to get about an even lineup as far as the cores and threads are concerned, but the MacBook Pro has the i9 and these have the i7. But as you can see, it's not going to make a huge difference as far as the actual performance, because you see you have 2.3 on the base and 4.8 on the turbo. Whereas over here you have 2.3 on the base and 5.1 on the turbo. So you're actually getting a little bit more clock speed, which will give you slightly better performance. Now, you see we have the RTX 2080 Supermax Q in the advanced model, and in the Studio Edition, we have that Quadro RTX 5000. So that's going to be even better performing than the 3000 in the Concept D7, as well as the StudioBook 17. And then for the advanced, we have 16 gigs of RAM. For the Studio, 32. Full HD screen for the advanced, 4K for the Studio, and they both have great color accuracy. So these are great choices as quote-unquote MacBook Pro rivals. As you see, I mean, they even look pretty stinking similar, especially with the Studio Edition. So great pick. I looked at these at CES, loved the build, loved my hands-on experience with them. Unfortunately, I've not been able to have these in the studio with me. I continue to reach out to my rep at Razer, and just haven't been able to get a hold of one. All right, so answering your questions, we're going to talk about benchmark test results, thermal temps, noise, discussion regarding the specs. So let's dive right into it. First and foremost, Autodesk 3ds Max. As you see, leading the pack is that Asus ROG Strix G17. It is a fantastic laptop, like I said, and it really scores high in almost every benchmark in 3D modeling. As you see, the Studio Book fell a little low here in this test. That's because those drivers didn't really impact this test as much as I hoped. And then as you see down here, here's our non-dedicated GPUs, and they're just falling way low on the track. So this is a Ryzen 7 4700U and a Ryzen 5 4500U, and I left these on here to show you if you're looking for that laptop for 3D modeling. I do not recommend it. It is literally 120 points lower than a laptop that's about $800 more expensive or so, give or take. So I'm really leaning towards those dedicated GPUs. Even in this, which is a mobile processor, has a dedicated GPU, and it almost doubles the score. And then you have the Nitro 5 getting better. As you see here with the Nitro 5, you have the 93. If you would upgrade this to 16 gigs of RAM, you're going to get a better score because that RAM helps with the processing of the tasks. So I think if you updated that to 16 gigs of RAM, you might see 100, around 100 for this test. But yeah, this lineup is looking really good across the board. All these laptops handle it very well. All right, next up on the list is the Autodesk Maya. So as you see, we have the ROG Strix G17, Acer Predator Helios, the Legion 5i, that's the Intel version, and then we have the Asus Zephyrus G14 coming in 4th place, HP Omen, and then down here we have the Asus ProArt Studio Book with that dedicated Quadro GPU. Next up is PTC Creo, and that's where I was saying that this is very much a Quadro Studio Driver focused program because the ProArt Studio Book totally dominates in PTC Creo. I'll leave this up here for another minute for you to check out the benchmarks. But as you see, they kind of just stagger down, but still most of these models are with above the 120 mark for over on here, and then they sit around the 116s on this spot here. All right, for SolidWorks, as you see, another program based very much for that Quadro GPU, and it is just totally dominating. The ProArt Studio Book killed it in SolidWorks. So if you're going to be somebody working in SolidWorks a lot, I'd recommend that Quadro RTX GPU, whether it be the 5000 or the 3000, and you're going to get phenomenal results for that one. All right, and for the thermal, so these are the average thermal benchmarks under stress as the computer has stabilized. So you'll obviously see peaks in thermal temperatures, and then as the heat or as the fans kick on and the thermal cooling starts to take place, it'll pull the temperatures down and stabilize them. So these are the stabilized temperatures. As you see the Acer Spin 5, which is a laptop with a non-dedicated GPU, I left that on there just to kind of show you like where laptops sit. It's getting the highest temperatures. From there we have the G14, which I said was a hot laptop. It packs a big punch in a small frame, and it doesn't have the best opportunities for ventilation, but it isn't outrageously hot. It's just very noticeable. From there, you have the Asus ZenBook Pro Duo at 85 degrees Celsius, the Asus TUF A15 at 85, Predator Helios 300, Strix G17, and then it just falls down the list here. One of my favorite laptops by far for cooling, quietness, performance was the ProArt Studio Book. This laptop stayed below 75, at or below 75 decibels for most Celsius, stayed at or below 75 degrees Celsius for most of the benchmarks. And for as far as noise was concerned, this thing stayed below 50 decibels on almost every test. So it's like 45 to 50 decibels and lower. And so I really appreciated how quiet this laptop was. But most of these other laptops were boosting up to around 50 to 60 decibels. So if you want a quiet laptop, Studio Book or the Acer Concept D7 Pro. Not all GPUs are created equally, and this is something I really wanted to discuss A lot of times people are like, hey, I want to buy this laptop or that laptop. It has a Ryzen 7 processor, but you have to consider what Ryzen 7 processor does it have. So like I mentioned earlier, I left these on the screen. And I'll pull these up here in just a second. I left the Acer Swift 3 on the screen because it has a Ryzen 7 4700U. That is not even close to the same as the Ryzen 7 4800H. And so not all CPUs are created equally. I really wanted to emphasize that. So, if you're going to get an i5, make sure you get an i5 10300H or an i5 9300H. And these processors are going to be higher performing processors. Do not get an i5U processor or an i7U processor if you want to do 3D modeling, and make sure that you have a dedicated GPU. So these are just little things that are important to consider when buying a 3D modeling laptop. Yeah, you might find a laptop, oh wow, it's only $800 and it's an i7 and it has 16 gigs of RAM. And Ben said i7 and 16 gigs of RAM. Well, I did say i7, but I said i7 with H SKU. And I said 16 gigs of RAM was a good start, but 32 is really where you want to go. And that's why, as you see in my slide here, 16 gigs as a minimum, but I recommend 32 just because these programs are so, they're girthy, should I say. They take a lot of power to run them and run them effectively. So you want to make sure you have a high quality CPU, as in high performing, a good performing GPU, and a great one if you want fast action in these programs, and then you want a good amount of RAM. Now, SSD versus hard disk drive. For me, the solid state drive is going to be the way to go. It's going to read and write faster. It's going to break down less. It doesn't have any spinning parts considering the hard disk drive, which has the spinning wheel and arm that reads. And so, moving parts wear out over time. So I would personally go for a solid state hard drive for reliability and performance. Okay, now these are my top picks. If I was going to choose a laptop, I picked out about, I think, 4 to 6 laptops that I would personally go for in, each mid to high budget price point. If I was going to go for a laptop in the lower end price point, I would probably do the Nitro 5 or the IdeaPad 3, the Gaming 3, but I would upgrade those to 16 gigs of RAM without a doubt. But as far as top picks that I would pick today and start doing 3D modeling and feel very confident in them, we're going to kick it off with the HP Omen. I like that this laptop has the latest Ryzen processor. It has at least 16 gigs of RAM, and it has the GTX 1660 Ti. Next up on the list is going to be the Asus Zephyrus G14. It has a great GPU, it has a great CPU, and it has at least 16 gigs of RAM. Love the all aluminum design. It's thin, it's light, it's a great on-the-go laptop compared to the HP Omen, which is a little bit thicker, but it's going to be a better price point, and you're going to be able to run it a little bit cooler, which is a big bonus here. For somebody who wants a cooler running laptop, the HP Omen is going to be your pick. If you're looking for thin and light, but you don't mind the heat, the Asus Zephyrus G14 is great. All right, next up is the Gigabyte Aero 15, color accurate, great build quality, one of my favorite gaming laptops that is also an awesome creator laptop. Best all-around laptop for performance, for build quality, for color accuracy. I have to give it to the Rogue Strix G. It just has incredible performance at the price point of around $1,800. You got an 8 gig GDDR6 VRAM GPU in this thing, and that's just phenomenal, especially for 3D modeling. And as you saw, this thing sat at the top benchmarks for every single test. The ProArt StudioBook Pro 17, you're somebody who's working in PTC Creo or SolidWorks. It's got great color accuracy. It runs cool and quiet. It's thin. It's light comparatively. And it has aluminum and a hardened polymer plastic material for the build. Overall, a great laptop, and I think it's a laptop built for this type of thing, and they did it very well. All right, so as always, if you're curious about the exact pricing of any of these models, you can head down in the description below and click one of those links. And of course, if you do use that link, I will get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you. And that's what keeps this channel alive and the helpful content coming your way. I thank you so much for tuning into this video. Keep creating, keep designing, keep editing. I'm Benji Kaiser, and I will see you here in the next one.